but in the United Kingdom, there is less experience for construction of nuclear power plants. So, is there any challenges or that?
There's some quite big challenges in the UK. But I'm not sure again that there is a bit that is nuclear, and we're finding that out. So each new contractor that we're engaging on sites as they come on site are going through a very, very steep learning process to understand what it means to build nuclear. I mean, the essence of the quality issue for a constructor on site is that it really means that when it's drawn, it's in the drawing, it's in the design, you have to do it exactly on the site. And that is difficult, but it's not as if the UK doesn't have any nuclear experience. We have 15 nuclear reactors. There's a lot of companies that do work on those reactors in their entities. And we have a nuclear weapons program. So you'll find that there's an atomic weapon establishment at Aldermaston where there have been huge construction activities, new construction, as they look to build the equipment needed to test and develop nuclear weapons. So you'll find that there are in fact some companies with a lot of experience, plus the construction of nuclear submarines. So it's not that the UK has done no nuclear construction, because it has. But having said that, a nuclear power plant is really a uniquely complicated piece of machinery. And I think that the key I don't know anything about the construction industry in Japan. Okay, so I can't really draw a comparison, but I can compare with China and France. And because of the way the UK government has procured equipment in the UK for a long time, hospitals, schools, and other roads, we've ended up in a place where we have engineering consultancy firms, and we have construction companies. And the construction companies have very little engineering experience. They're engineers, people who can design in the engineering companies. They exist as organisations to take somebody else's design and build exactly what has been designed. This in itself is a weakness when you come to look at nuclear power. Because if a designer has made something that's really difficult to construct, a UK company will go and construct it and charge you for it. In France, most of the people like Vinci and Bouygues have very strong engineering departments that will look at the design and say it's too difficult to construct. You should change the design and make it this way. And I saw that because I built a gas CCGT to a French design, and in France, EDF design, engineering team designed it, and at the same time they were building the same design in two places in France. And I know that the French civil contractor changed the design themselves to make it easier to construct, and the UK constructor just went on and constructed it, and the UK constructor took longer and it was more expensive. That's one example, which is not really to do with nuclear experience. It's to do with quite a long history. I think compared to some other countries, maybe the UK just hasn't had to spend enough on big construction, because the other side of it is in the UK we have a history of making specifications which are very special to the UK. And what that means that you can't make use of an international supply chain in open competition, because, again, to give you a stupid example, when we had a networks business, I know that transformers for the networks business were, the UK specification puts hooks on the top of the transformer of a particular colour and size to be so they can be lifted. But they're different from the international norm.
Yeah.
And as a result, we have a number of small changes to the transformer type, which means you can't just buy a transformer off out of a factory, out of stock. It ends up being made specially for you. It's very expensive. But that type of issue affects roads, bridges, and affects the work that we do. The other feature of our construction companies, which is needs to be looked at and understood, is they tend not to employ their own people. In fact, most of our construction companies employ only the management teams. So when you ask for something, when you contract with one of them to build something for you, to give you an extreme example, a small group from the company will go to the site. They'll put adverts in newspapers for craftspeople. The craftspeople will come along and they'll employ them. It's an extreme example, but it's not actually completely an exaggeration. Because the craftspeople, the people who have tools in their hands and are on the site, generally are not the employees of the company that does the construction. Even the first line foreman or supervision, they just say, you'll be a foreman, you're a carpenter, that's very different from other countries. Like in France, again, they don't have the sorts of employment contracts that means are not possible. So the companies tend to employ many more people, a large part of the people on site. So this feature is definitely inefficient. People are not trained properly. They're not. You can't. It makes it very difficult to distinguish between people that are good and people that are not good, because you can't use information from other companies. If you use information from there was a court case where I think 4 construction companies got prosecuted for what's called blacklisting. They wrote down a list of workers that were not good workers on site, and they passed the list around, and they were prosecuted because that's against data protection. You're not allowed to hold information on people unless they're aware of it.
Do you think construction cost will be cheap after the construction of Hinkley Point?
I don't think nuclear power is ever going to be cheap.
I mean, cheaper than HPC because of.
I hope. I've put in a mandatory requirement for supervision training and a standard of supervision. So what we've done, we've entered into an agreement with 5 unions, a single agreement to try and control the power of the unions, because this is also a very heavily unionised workforce, largely because they're not managed inside a company. So they're looking for someone to protect the people who do the work, are trying to get their interests protected. So I've put in place a brand new union agreement, which has taken us years to negotiate with the companies who weren't very happy with it. And I've put in a requirement in the contracts of all of our supply chain that they have to comply with our requirement for trained supervision on site. And I hope that over the period that we will train people to do their job better. The other thing that we've done is we're building a series of 7 or 8 mock-ups of parts of the plant on the site, which we're getting constructed by our companies, as a practice before they do the construction on the site. And we're using it as a way of proving their own processes, allowing the nuclear safety authorities to see whether the quality is correct, and to try and study with them how to improve the productivity. And it's proved to be so far successful. We've built so far 2 mock-ups. They have proved, for instance, we've introduced 3D modelling of all the reinforcement bar. So every piece of metal bar that goes inside the concrete is going to be modelled in 3D and 4D when you look at the sequence in which you should build the rebar cages on site. And we proved that on the first mock-up with some difficulties, and our second mock-up it's worked really well. We've got the UK regulator to approve welding elements of the rebar cage together so you can build the rebar cages off-site, off where you're actually doing construction, build them off. So we're doing our best to address training of people. We've put I set up we've had maybe 400 people go through the supervisor training, but we've had a lot of people going through a course on reinforcement bar, fixing the reinforcement bar, so that we can train people to our standard on site. And we'll go through, as we go through the life of construction, we'll have training ready to help. But we built last week the first permanent feature of the plant. Did it on Friday. The previous nuclear power plant was in that stage 30 years ago. It's a long time.
Can I ask the name of the construction company
that we're using?
Yeah.
We've the earthworks that's moving rock and soil to go and make the right shape for the nuclear power plant is Kia BAM. It's a joint venture between Kia and BAM Nuttall. And earthworks. We call it earthworks. It's moving the rock. So we have a slope, hill, and a valley, and we're moving the slope into the valley. It's about 5.6 million cubic meters of rock that we're moving. That contract is with Kia BAM, and the civil structure, so the concrete structure of the building, is being made by Bouygues Langeroog. So Langeroog is a UK company, and Bouygues is a French company. So we created a joint venture to get the Bouygues are the civil contractor on Flamanville, and Costain are the contractor for the marine works. So we're building 3 tunnels out to sea to go and take the water in and take it out. So those are our main construction companies for the next phase of the project.
Are you taking experts from France? So it's kind of supervisor.
Supervisors on site, no, because it's not yet anyway. We have I think about 70 people over from France in engineering roles largely, and nearly all of our engineering is being done in Paris and Tours in France, and that's, I don't know, it's probably about 1,500 people at the moment working on engineering. And we have about 1,700 people on site at the moment. Besides, are there prospects that construction costs will decline after construction of HPC? I think so. There's a question of timing with another project.
Yeah.